topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Who is January Jones? She is not a young, beautiful, talented actress on Mad Men. She is not an older, gorgeous, exotic dancer from the Johnny Carson show. She is an author, and she wrote Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, that reached #1 at Amazon.com. She is a reality TV golf personality with World High Stakes Golf televised on HDNet. She is a humorist and winologist expert. She is your featured host today on January Jones Sharing Success Stories. So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and listen to Ms. Jones with her eclectic roster of guests as you learn life's lessons. These stories plus sharing equals success. Welcome, and remember, beware, because you are entering the no whining world of January Jones.
Everyone, I hope you're having a glowing day. I'm January Jones, and I'd like to welcome you to our podcast. As you can see, I'm launching my new brand, Glitter Granny, which we'll be talking about later during the show. Now for my listeners, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a chance to meet a stewardess? Well, you know what? Now they're called flight attendants. But when I did it, we were stewardesses. Do you remember Pan Am Airlines? Or do you remember Eastern Airlines? Tell me, can you imagine what it would be like to fly alongside Air Force One and look out the window and see them? Have you ever met someone who was in Moscow during a coup? Would you like to hear some real airline war stories? Tell me now, have you ever heard of a book entitled On Butterflies' Wings? If you can answer yes or maybe to any of these questions, I'd like to welcome you to January Jones Sharing Senior Success Stories today. So now it's time, rest, relax, go get some wine, cheese, and crackers so you can join us in the no wine zone. Now let me tell you a little bit about our guest. She graduated from American University in Washington, majoring in political science and international studies with minors in sociology. She has been a flight attendant, and she has traveled to more than 75 countries, based in 5 of them. And now she spends her time between Houston and LA. It's my pleasure to welcome to our show today, Tania Anderson.
Hello, January. Good to meet you again.
Wonderful. We got to chat a little bit before we went on the air. I'm so excited. I think you're actually the first stewardess / flight attendant that I've ever had on the show. And, I must reveal I was one. I only flew for 2 years, so I don't have as many experiences as you've had. But tell me, where did it all start, Tania? Where were you born, and where did your love of flying come from?
Oh, well, actually, it was conceived in Caracas, Venezuela. Because my parents were, but I grew up in McLean. They were down there on a business trip, which was pretty cool because then, it was different. All the flora and fauna and the jungly type atmosphere. I grew up in McLean right outside of Washington, D.C. Okay. And very cosmopolitan background. My parents had friends, from all kinds of different countries. I was named for my Russian godmother, for example. And they used to hold joint soirees with the Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, and his wife.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so we'd have all these kind of diplomats and everything. So that, and I'm an only child, so that's where I grew up,
Sure.
and the environment I grew up in. And then I got sent to school in England when I was 14, and I insisted on a co-ed school. At first, my father was talking about girls' school. I'm like, oh no, 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 no! Even at 13, I wasn't going to sign up for that. And it worked out fabulously because it was very cosmopolitan again, and a lot of those people I'm friends with to this day. I mean, lifelong friends, and an amazing experience.
Yeah. I went to an all-girls school, and we're still 60 some years later connecting on Facebook with each other.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, those friendships, they just stay with you forever. They're the best. So how long were you in England as a child?
Well, I was 14 to 18, and then I came back to the States, and that's when I went to American University.
Oh, wow. That's so impressive, and what a wonderful university. And tell us about what you studied there.
Well, it was political science, international studies, and a minor, like you said, mentioned in sociology and psychology. And for a while, I thought about being, kind of like, a psychologist, something along those lines.
Mhm.
But then I realized I wouldn't have used the word empath when I was in my early 20s because I just didn't know the word. But I realized at that age that it would probably be draining for me, not to be selfish, but you can be there for your friends and all that. And I'm, intensely loyal, but it gets to be kind of difficult when you have somebody who's, just really having a really difficult time, no matter the reason why.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, sociology, psychology, what better preparation do you need to go and work on an airline?
Right, exactly.
May I ask, how old were you when you made the decision to apply to Pan Am?
Actually, I was 32 when I got hired by them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Yeah, it was a great from the very beginning. It was amazing. The interview was remarkable in that they want to hear something cosmopolitan that you're saying. Okay, so for
Mhm.
example, if your parents were from Greece or something like that, they kind of perked up a bit. You had to have a language. Now, you didn't have to be fluent. But what they
Oh, really?
ask you some questions in the right, they say, "What's your language?" And they'd say, "Okay, here's a piece of paper and translate line number 379," like that. You're kind of
Uh-huh.
like,
Now,
oh.
what was your language?
Well, it was Spanish, but I hadn't had Spanish from high school, so it would have been like more than like 12 years or something.
Uh-huh.
So, but then we had to study. You just don't get off the hook. So they gave us 450 vocabulary words that are airline related, including like all our entrees are worldwide because we were still going to 82 countries then, when I got hired, and how to say mal tormentoso, like turbulence, all these, because I was, after 3 years I became a purser, which you're in charge of the flight, and on a 747 it would seat 425 people in
Wow.
3 classes of service. So you had a lot of responsibility. You had the landing cards, you had the duty free, and I was taught how to slice the Chateaubriand, don't saw the meat, and they
Mhm.
even taught us, you're gonna like this, they even said if you're a smoker, this is how you smoke a cigarette. So you sit on your jump seat and you get a cup with some water in it, and then when you light your cigarette, you bring it up to your mouth like this, very ladylike, and then you use the little cup to to fill the ash.
Listen, that is every stewardess. I remember I flew long before you. I was on Constellations, and
Wow.
we'd go in the back, we'd have our little cup, we'd light up our cigarette, and we'd do all our smoking before the seatbelt sign and smoking, and then we'd put it out.
I know. It's funny, isn't it? When you think about it. And Pan Am, for example, about the languages, we always had at least one flight attendant on board that spoke the language of the country we're going into.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, because it's good to have somebody who really speaks that language. But if not, I could say enough in Spanish. I could read the announcements and things like that.
Yeah.
But also in our survival guide, they had in like 10 different languages how to, once you've got everybody, let's say, God forbid you ditch,
Yeah.
once everybody's in the raft, this is how to organize it, So like if you had to still do some duties, like, somebody got injured on the way out of the airplane, you could like delegate authority and give the survival manual to somebody and have them read it. It's kind of, well, in a way, it's kind of therapeutic because you're getting them engaged, so it's.
Now, let me ask you, did you train in Miami?
Oh, yes, we did.
That's where Eastern trained. And I lived in one of those incredible stuzoos, condos, apartments.
Right.
and I came from Michigan. So getting down to Miami was like going to paradise.
Well, it is. I mean, I've been going to Southern Florida my whole life, but I mean, we were all excited down there. I mean, we're having pool parties and everything. Like you say, it's really exciting.
Yeah, it was such an international city. And we had, where we lived in Miami Springs in the villas, we had flight attendants from Pan Am, you name it, everyone from around the world. It was such an incredible place. I know. Now, how long did you fly for Pan Am?
Only 6.5 years.
Oh.
And you want to hear, boy, talk about a dichotomy. So I was on a White House press charter carrying President Bush Sr. from Andrews Air Force Base down to Sarasota, Florida. He was going to go to the Tropicana plant. And then after that, we were going to fly to Meridian Air Base, Mississippi. And I had and it's funny because I'm a news hound. So, all the press who was on my Pan Am airplane flying alongside Air Force One, I knew who they were because I'd seen them on TV. So it was very interesting. And then from Sarasota to Meridian Air Base, John Sununu gave his resignation letter to, the President Senior. So now my passengers, the journalists, they can't wait to get off and go down to their bureau. And, that's going to be the lead story, because it was, So, it is exciting. But the thing I was going to say, too, is like, that I knew that day that we were bankrupt because the pilot came out. He'd been listening to the radio while the president was downtown. I went over to, there are two Air Force Ones, you probably know, 747s, identical inside and out, tail 28,000, 29,000. And so I went over and I'm just chatting with the Air Force flight attendants, and they're wonderful. Colonel Danny Barr was the chief pilot for the president. And they're so welcoming. So you choose that with them. I went back to Pan Am, and the pilot comes out of the cockpit. Now, we knew we were in very serious financial. And we had been watching Eastern, too, because Eastern went bankrupt 11 months before we did. And then the pilot came out just white. He said, well, that's it for us. Delta pulled out of the Pan Am to a deal. And so we're finished. So I went back to Andrews because I'd parked my Chevette there because I lived only like about 45 minutes away, and it was a cold December night, January. It was a really cold night, and it's sleeting and everything. And I was just crying so hard. I'm glad I didn't run off the road because I was just so upset. But we knew it was coming. But it's still, when it happens, and then the next day I'm in the unemployment line in a dangerous part of DC, and thinking, well, what a dichotomy is this? 24 hours ago, I was talking to Air Force One flight attendants just chewing the fat, and here we are in the unemployment line. But hey, it's life. It's just you just deal with it the best you can.
Oh, I know. My husband, we're an airline family. He flew for United for 32 years.
Wow.
And then when he retired, about 2 years into retirement, they filed bankruptcy. And it is such a devastating thing to happen to families, individuals, families, everyone, when an airline goes under like that. How long did it take you to find another job?
Actually, I was hired by American about 6 months later, and I was really happy. But then it's just domestic bebop. I don't go for that. I'm an exotic girl. The more exotic, the better. I've now been to 79 countries. It was 75, but now it's 79. And I've been based in 5, and I've really had an amazing experience of it. But when I was at American, I had a wonderful supervisor. I loved him, Tim. He was absolutely fabulous. And so what I did was they had a liberal leave policy. So that's when I took like 3 months off, and I was still in touch with my Pan Am buddies, right? And my dear friend, the late Ganilla Crawford, said, hey, we have some things coming that, so we did the Hajj. That was the first time I ever did the Hajj. And that's when you go around the world, pick up the Muslims and take them into Saudi Arabia for the pilgrimage.
Oh my God, I want to hear about that one.
Oh, and that leads, as you know, one thing leads to another. And that was an amazing experience. So now all the Pan Am people, okay, so we were mixed. We had,
you know what? We're going to have to take a break.
Okay. You want to take a break now?
I want to share with everyone, it's time to glitter and glow with Glitter Granny.
Welcome to Glitter Granny Gifts to Give or to Get. Hosted by January Jones, aka Glitter Granny, and her golden doodle ginger ale. If you're a granny who wants to glitter and glow, it's time to join us for a sparkling shopping experience that will be unique and so very special. Whenever you need a unique and spectacular gift, then Granny will help you find it. Along with gifts for family, friends, and holidays, there are even glitter gifts for coworkers, in-laws, doctors, and you can even find something for your friend who has everything. If you need a really good gag gift, you'll find it here. Hats, canes, shoes, accessories. When it comes to glitter accessories, Granny and Ginger Ale are on board with everything you can imagine, and then some more. The favorites are at her website, and remember, she is adding to this list almost every day with lots of fun gifts to give or to get. Granny has created a website that is glamorous and glows with glitter products to wear or to use every day. As she says, if it ain't got bling, it doesn't mean a thing. Now let me tell you about her glitter hat collection. She actually has too many to count. Her collections are must-have accessories for any glitter granny who enjoys getting attention everywhere she goes. Remember, if people are going to stare at you, make it worthwhile for them. And canes? Everyone will ask you, where did you get it? Can I get one too? Now, just go to glittergranny.com and check it out.
All of our products are available at Amazon.com. Be sure to sign up and join Glitter Granny. And when you do, you'll get a free ebook, Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, that went to #1 at Amazon. Now, Tania, let's share a little bit about your wonderful book.
Wow. Well, it took me a long time to write it because there's so many things that I talk about. And just traveling to all these countries, flying special assignments with them. And the people that you meet are remarkable. So like I was talking about Nigeria, the Pan Am people were all reunited for that. But we had mixed groups. So we'd have the pilots were all Pan Am, the mechanics were former Pan Am, and we'd have 4 Americans on board and then 10 Nigerians. And so then it was kind of funny because, okay, you can tell who's got money of the passengers and who doesn't. But I didn't know who was who. Who's the Sultan? Who's the Emir? Who's the chief? And well, we were introduced to the chief pretty early on. So we were flying for Chief Cabo. And then some of his aides went to him and said, the tall white woman is very good with our people, meaning me, because I'm almost 6 feet tall. You know what I mean? So he came looking for me, and then we ended up being friends. And and his brother as well, Garba. And so what happened after that, our operation was over after about 3.5 months, and we all went back to the States. But then a good friend of mine, Cicero, was going to marry another chief's daughter, and so Cicero's former Pan Am too. Cicero and I went back to Nigeria, and then that's when the chief, and he was always waving his hands around. He had an oil company, he had small hotels, he had clinics, and he owned the banks too. So he said, "Madame, would you like to come back and work for me and bring a friend? And I said, yeah, I'd love that. And we started talking about money. And he said, how much salary do you require? And I said, well, $3,000 a month. And he said, oh, it's too much. I said, Chief, that's what you were paying us during the Hajj. He wasn't even aware of it. It was so funny. You just write the check and that, or come with the cash, kind of thing. So it was so many. So that led to other things because his brother Garba gave me a car and driver, and then he invited me to two different palaces, and then I went to a third. The first palace was up in Sokoto, which is northwestern Nigeria. Okay. Now, this is what's so different about Nigerian weddings and American weddings, or maybe Western weddings. So they're all Muslim up north, pretty much. And it was the Sultan's palace, and it's all marble. It's really amazing. He's been given a lot of gifts over the years, so he has portraits just stacked on the hallways. It's kind of funny. He hasn't even bothered putting them up, everything like that. So. My friend Bello, who was an assistant to the governor of that state, so they have a little bit of a British system too. He picked me up at the airport. I came up from Lagos, and we're in a Honda car. But all the locals, they've heard that this is going to be the wedding of the decade. So all the locals are pressing, and I can't even get out of the car because who's the white woman? So it turns out that I'm the only white woman, the only woman, the only white person, the only Christian. And what was the fourth thing? The only foreigner in the entire, but I didn't know that, in the entire palace when I went in. So we go in, wow. And he introduces me. Now I see them kind of kneeling down. So the Sultan is he's dwarfed by this big throne. And it's like dark red velvet, but then it's got gold trim on it. Okay. So, so I see them taking off their shoes and doing different things. So I'm wearing long silk. For the occasion, I'm in a palace after all, right. So I could be in any place in America. So I started to take off my shoes and bow because I wasn't quite sure what the protocol was. And so the guy introduces me and he goes, Your Majesty, Madame Tania has come all the way from the United States of America on the occasion of your daughter's wedding. But the thing was, and he kind of went big deal. But it wasn't true. I was there working for Chief Cabo, but it's a funny thing. Then it turns out his daughter. So I wanted to know where the bride was. I really wanted to meet her. I can greet them in their language, Sanuka Dazua, and I'm very polite and gracious. And I just wanted to meet his daughter because I'm fascinated by culture, And they said, oh, no, madame, you will not see her today. I'm like, why? He said, well, in Nigeria, you separate the brides and the bride's party from the men. So that's why I was in the palace with just the men. She's in a completely different location, drinking Sprites and Fantas with her girlfriends. That's a different world for me. But you accept it. And the second thing,
out of curiosity, I've witnessed a wedding in India where the bride wore gorgeous red outfit, and everyone had jewels, and the women were incredible. How long did it take before you got to see the bride?
I never did. They took me, and this is the second thing that was totally different about the way we do it. Very interesting and very cool. Actually, a very cool custom. They took me to another part of the palace, and they had this whole buffet out. Okay, and the impoverished from that area would come and stand in line. It's all men, it's not women. Stand in line, and they would get a plate, not only for themselves but to take back home. And the guards were there, so if they're lingering a little bit too much, a little bit too much stuff, the guards kind of keep moving. You know what I mean? But I thought that was amazing because I went to another pre-wedding luncheon in Kaduna, and they did the same thing. It was very interesting. This was a house, not a palace, but. Yeah, it was really remarkable.
Okay, now, how did you suddenly escape from Nigeria? Is this a part of the same story, or is this a different story?
No, it's a different chapter because time went on. I was there for 6 months working for the chief, and that's when he sent the housekeepers down to the market to get me a pet chimpanzee because the TV hadn't been hooked up yet. So I needed some entertainment. So that's a chapter about, and I called her Princess Kai because Kai language, House of Fulani language means surprise. And you never knew. I mean, she slept on the veranda every night, January. You never knew what kind of mood she was going to be in the morning. So she'd press her face on the glass when the servers would bring me like little coffee and stuff in my room. And so I'd open up the door, and sometimes she'd calmly walk in, and then sashay in. And then other times she would just go willy-nilly and start, moving lamps around and stuff like that. So, but she never broke anything. So that was the good news. So time, it was so funny. I mean, it was just amazing. It was amazing. In 2 days I was walking around with her on my hip, because you see, Americans like to get their hands on everything, but I treated her like she was a little kid. So I sat next to her when I was first introduced, and I talked to her like, "Hey baby, you're so cute, you're so pretty," but I didn't touch her. And 2 days later, I was walking around the compound with her on my hip.
Did you have to house train her?
No, she was fine. She never goofed up. No.
Wow, that's impressive.
And the houseboys were so funny, because they said, "Madame, she likes you because you're white." I said, "Oh, you guys, you're nuts." I said, "She likes me because I'm treating her with respect." And even at that young age, she understood it, just like a little kid,
Mm-hmm.
So time went on, and I was there 6 months, and I would go down to Lagos. I went down to our embassy to make a presentation on behalf of the chief to our number 3 man, because there had been our competitor had a really bad crash, and chief wanted me to go down to the embassy and convince them that our airplanes were safe, which I did, and I was flying on the airplanes too. So and then time went on, and then the psychophant. So what I was trying to do, January, is I was trying to make myself kind of like the liaison between the flight attendants and the chief, because I had trained them. So they remembered me from the Hajj operation, and I just, not to make extra money, but just to kind of make things easy for them, because, payday's Friday, and maybe you go and there's no money, so I just want to kind of like smooth that out for them. And then the psychophants around the chief, because, when he was making like $20 million a year. So, that's good in our society, but in that society where you pay the maid $25 a month, you pay the chauffeur $25 a month. Yeah, it goes real far. So there were always sycophants around him, and they said, "You've been duped. The white woman works for the CIA." Well, I am from McLean, Virginia.
Well,
it's so berserk.
I kind of know a little bit about that. Virginia is pretty much where they all live.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of my best friends is with the FBI. I mean, been with them since the 70s. But it was one of those things. It comes with the territory. That's what happens. But anyway, not with me though, because first of all, there's nothing to spy on. What would I be spying on? And secondly, I'd have to speak their language fluently, because if you're going to recruit people and get info, that's what you do. You don't go bumbling around like, "You're going to have to speak English because I don't know any House of Fulani." But anyway, so he came out to his plane one day. He'd gone up to London and bought this it was a used airplane, but it was really cool. It was a Bach 111, and it was really cool. It had mother of pearl inlaid furniture.
Oh, wow.
So I think the minute he saw that, he was like, "Oh, I'm buying this." Yeah. And it was December. He was getting ready to fly to Nairobi for a vacation. So I go to the airplane to make sure it's clean, and I'm training a couple of his security guards and telling them that this is how you use a halon and that sort of thing. And I'm dressed nicely. And I'm thinking, well, I might be able to go to the trip myself, or pick 2 of my favorite Nigerian flight attendants, And then he came out in a rage at the airplane, and I could see he was mad, but I just thought, he was mad. Why would he be mad at me? I haven't done anything wrong. And he said, "What are you doing on the airplane?" Just shouting at me. And his aides, and I knew all of them. I knew his lead attorney. I knew his managing director. I knew all of them. And Garba wasn't there, his favorite brother. Garba was on vacation in Miami, because if Garba had been there, I didn't have a cell phone in those days, but I could have gotten hold of Garba and said, anyway, yeah. So I fled that night. I was really scared. I went to the KLM office. The manager was there. And he said, "Oh, I was on your plane the other day. You greeted me so nicely." I said, "Oh, thank God." He got me out that night, and that was December 21st. Yeah, wow. and I fled, and I haven't been back since. It's like, I was really afraid. I was really afraid.
Yeah, that sounds very, very scary. We're going to take a break. And like Tania, I've also written a book. And in my book, there's a chapter 4, and it's entitled Eastern Airlines.
Producing, living, and dying without whining. A memoir. 80 years of magical moments, written by January Jones. Patriotic moments, revealing moments, thrilling and comforting moments, sassy moments, the age of Aquarius, exciting moments, reality moments, career moments, touching moments, with many, many more magical moments. Available at Amazon.com and Audible.com.
Welcome back. And I'm so enjoying visiting with Tania Anderson. You know, Tania, I was a stewardess. That's what we were called back then, for only 2 years. But then 2 of my daughters became flight attendants for United. And of course, my husband flew for United. So we're a total airline family. And I just love hearing all of your adventures. Now, let's talk a little bit about Madagascar. How did you get there building houses for habitat?
Oh, that's so cool. Well, that's not airline related, but so I joined Habitat for Humanity, and you go for 3 weeks. You spend some time building houses, and then you have a little bit of a tour of the country, so you get to know it, all that. So I went over. I joined the team. You can pick whatever country you want to go to, and I wanted to go to Madagascar because the animals are so cool. Those lemurs, oh my gosh, I thought I died and gone to heaven. I just love them. They're so cute. They're so sweet. So we built the houses, and I've always referred to that as the best kind of a PR there is, or it's like the best kind of diplomacy there is. That's what I really mean, because they know why you're there. You're not there to sell weird computers that I'm having trouble with. I'm going to sell you some funky thing. You're there to build houses. And the children were darling. They speak French, but they the word for foreigner was something like "fasa." So every day, and it's so funny because in the U.S. I've worked for I've volunteered for Habitat for Humanity. You're not let onto the construction site unless you have a hard hat and good shoes, right?
Right.
We go to Madagascar. I'm wearing a sarong, and I'm wearing flip flops. Same difference. And the scaffolding is lashed together. It's branches that are lashed together with ropes. Just amazing. And the team was what were we, like 12 Americans and 2 Canadians, and then we had Claude, our bus driver, and then we had Edwin, who was one of our guides. Who were fabulous. I mean, it's just such a great experience, and I just loved every minute of it. It was just, everybody's working. I mean, I saw a little we all did. This little like 5 or 6-year-old kid picked up 2 bricks, which for that size is really, and carrying along, trying to help us.
And barefoot, probably.
Exactly. Just love that sort of thing. Just love it. It's good.
We have a niece who went into the Peace Corps, and she went to Micronesia, and we were able to go visit her with our 4 kids. And actually, she ended up marrying a Micronesian and raising her family there. And what an experience to go into these cultures that are so primitive. To get there, we were landing on islands where people were in loincloths.
Yeah.
What an amazing experience. And of course, Habitat for Humanity. I mean, what an incredible operation. And I think a lot of it goes to Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, how they promoted it.
Yeah, that's an amazing legacy. And then, here in Long Beach, which is a suburb of LA, kind of, we had a blitz built, and the same guy that wrote Braveheart, I can never remember his name. Shame on me. They called it Hollywood for Habitat. So Randall Wallace very, very well connected, okay, in Hollywood. But this is 2000. He went out and got all these people. Dustin Hoffman came, and Agassi's brother was there. All these people. Every time you turn around, here's somebody else. And see, we have white hard hats, which means, okay, brand new. You got to teach me everything. I'm a newbie. And then the yellow ones would be supervisors. So they also had a whole bunch of people that own their own construction companies that would come along and say, okay, you got to do this, you got to move that, or whatever it is. And then they got a strip of land from the LA. And they built 26 houses on that whole. It was fabulous. So they just assigned me. So I was assigned on the house where the women are building, is all women build. And Congress lady Jane Harmon came by at the time, and then she autographed like the wall, but it's going to be covered up with drywall pretty soon. But what was really cool was Bo Derek worked on my house with her sister.
With their
yeah. And she was so sweet because, she wanted to work. And the guys, the word got out. The guys, Bo Derek's on the woman's house and blah, blah, blah. So they'd find their way to come around, and they'd pick up like a little block of wood, or, and ask her to autograph it, or take their helmet off. Can you autograph this? But I could tell that she wanted to work. And I took a good picture of her. I said, is it okay? She's like, yeah. And I then, because I belong to Screen Actors Guild, I got her address, but this is years ago. And I sent her the picture, and she actually sent me a thank you note. So I thought that was very cool. But that was a wonderful build.
Well, we were based in LA for over 40 years.
Oh, really?
We were out in Westlake Village and Thousand Oaks. And one of the most amazing things about living there is you kind of get to be a little blasé about the Hollywood people, because they're all over. And I can remember going into Gelston's, and you'd be pushing your cart, and then all of a sudden, all the women in the aisles, word would be passed around, Tom Selleck in produce.
Right. I know.
So there'd be a stampede down to produce just so you could look at him. You never would talk to him or interfere in his privacy. That was never done. But it was a fascinating place to live.
It's funny. I know. I mean, there's so much going on out here. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we loved it. Actually, we didn't retire in California. We retired to Arizona, but then we thought, could we go back? And then we figured out we could never afford to.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, I flew 5.5 years out of Van Nuys, a corporate. And one time I was on the phone, just on the ground, and Tom Selleck walked in, and I was like, oh, hi, but we had that. Robert Redford walked in, Ted Danson come. I mean, they all come in sooner or later. And Margaret came in one time. So, you always have your eyes open, obviously. But then about 10 minutes after he came in, I got a phone call, and she said, hi, I'm just checking to see if, and it was his personal assistant. I'm just checking to see if Tom Selleck got there. And I went, she said, you've seen him, haven't you? And I said, yes. It was so funny.
It's so cool because they just walk around, and guess what? They're regular people.
Right.
And most of them are nice as can be.
And sometimes things come full circle too, because I had a lot of very well-known people at my school in England, and two of them were Elizabeth Taylor's two sons, Mike and Chris Wilding. Mm-hmm. So when she was married to John Warner and he was running for Senate in Virginia, I went down to Gunston Hall, and I was wearing bright green silk, emerald green silk. And what I said to her, everybody says, oh, your eyes are so blue. But I just looked at her and I said, I was 26. I go, I went to school with Mike and Chris in England. She said, you must have gone to Millfield. And I said, yes, I did. And so she looks at John Warner and says, darling, give her phone number, because Chris is coming to town soon. I just about fainted on the spot. I couldn't believe it. And it was her private number in Georgetown. So I was like, wow. So I did call, and I had a little party a couple of weeks later in my little modest apartment, and Chris did come. So it was quite remarkable.
That's a sweet story. This whole week has been so crazy with the elections and all this political. I vowed never, I don't think I'm ever going to do another political show again.
Gosh, I know it's multifaceted. It really is.
This is so much more fun. But share with us a little bit about your career. on Capitol Hill for international human rights. What did you do there, Tanya?
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually all volunteer, and the NGO Care that sent packages to well, actually airdropped, and then had the care meals after World War II ended because the civilians in Germany were really in dreadful shape. Okay, so that's how they got started, and they lobby on Capitol Hill for international human rights. So what they do is they have an annual conference where they train you. I did it for about 5 or 6 years. So it was for Education for All Act, Child Marriage Act.
Oh, yeah.
I did on my own Civil Rights Tax Relief Act, and a Violence Against Women Act. And so what you do is you get together. They divide us into what your state is, and then you say, "Oh, where do you live in Arizona?" Where like that sort of thing. And I did it a couple times for Arizona because I had a condo in Tucson, and yeah. So the California group is usually pretty big, about 50 people, and the Arizona group might be 8 or something. So I kind of fatten them up a little bit, and it was a very good experience. So they teach you how to approach the legislator or the legislative aide, and then but you look at the resume. So you say something like, Miss Jones, I had a look at your resume, and I was pleased to see that you supported blah 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 act. And the one that I want to talk to you about today is similar, and these are the reasons. This is what I think is the similarities are. You kind of approach it like that, and then you just have a chat. And so when I can't even remember what senator's office I was in, but I was telling his aide who was pregnant that she'd been with him for some time about a little groom that I met. He just got married in northern India, okay, and we got their attention because the bridal party in a little Honda car, but all made up with marigolds, so pulled off the street to see what we were doing. I mean, obviously we're from somewhere else, and we spoke perfect English. And I said, "Can I get a picture of your bride?" And he said, "Oh, she doesn't stop crying." I said, "Well, honey, why is she crying?" He said, "Because she's 10 years old and we just got married. She didn't want to leave her parents." Yeah. And when I said that to the legislative aide, they went, "You don't need to say anymore," because she's pregnant herself. So she could really identify with it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's, I said I was going to stay away from politics, but I've been, a little depressed this week because do you ever think we'll ever have a woman president in this country?
Boy, it's hard to say. It really is. I had a really great few days leading up to this because I'm supporting the congressman from the next district over, and he's a super guy. He used to be chief of staff at NASA, so he's very, very bright. And actually, I checked this morning, and it's still too close to call. And then I saw Adam Schiff, who just became our senator. Actually, I saw him Saturday night, I saw him Monday night, and I saw him election night. Obviously, 3 different things. I went to a comedy show and laughed for 2 hours, which felt really good. I was by myself, but I went. It was really, really good. I know it's kind of tough. There's a lot of variables in there, I think. And so, it's hard to nail down exactly what it is. Is it macho men that don't want to vote for a woman? What are all the dynamics here? It's just kind of multifaceted.
I know. I was just hoping in my lifetime that I would be able to see a woman run this country, because I don't think men have done that great of a job. I mean, some of them have been. My preference would be just let's give her a chance. Let's see what a woman could do. But hopefully I'll live long enough to see that happen. You've had such an amazing life. How long did it take you to write your book, and why?
Well, I did it in parts. Yeah, as things. A lot of times, I would send a chapter to somebody who had the same experience that I had, like the Hodge in India, or my Catholic friends. I'm Episcopalian. I sent my first chapters about being blessed by Mother Teresa at her home in Calcutta. So I sent it to 3 Catholic friends, and I said, "Please tell me how I can tweak this. What's wrong? What's right? And what you would add to it." you know, to really polish it up. And they did, because they started using some Catholic vernacular that I, you know, that about the different kind of chalice and that sort of thing. And so that was very cool. And I actually stayed in touch with Mother Teresa's, one of her nuns that I met, one of her sisters, and that sister only passed away like last year, Sister Anne Teresa. But she was amazing because she was glowing. I write about it in my book. When I met the sister at Mother Teresa's home in Calcutta, we had a little bit of a conversation, and right away she hears my accent. She said, "What part of the States are you from?" And I said, "Washington, D.C." And she said, "I was in Washington, D.C. with the Missions of Charity." But I write about her and describe her because she was glowing, and she had a glow at the time. I mean, that was like 96. Okay, I couldn't tell if she was 40 or 60 because she just glowed. She just people that carry that good energy, any kind of in anywhere in the world. I look for it. They have light in their eyes. I've seen this at the temples in Nepal. They have light in their eyes and they have a glow. I can't see auras, but boy, I can feel them. So
Yeah. These are people that one time I was on a flight with Dalai Lama, and these are people who are old souls who are holy. These are the blessed ones. And they're here not to learn, but they're here to teach. And just when you're in the presence of one of them, you know, there's no question.
yes,
And they're just, what a blessing to have been able to be even near them. Okay, now this is like my last question. If you could choose one person in the world, living or dead, besides me, that you would like to have dinner with, who would it be?
oh boy, January, that's a really tough question because everybody, I like to say everybody brings something to the table, you
Mhm.
know, and altogether we're 100%. I say those two things. So many, just so many, but it will probably be some kind of world icon like MLK or a Gandhi, you know, Mahatma Gandhi,
Yeah.
um, somebody who's really walked the walk. Somebody who's been very spiritual and really, you know, like my mother said to me when I was 16, darling, I have to have a talk with you. I'm thinking, what have I done now? And then she said, I want you to start thinking about what you're going to do in your life because I want you to leave I want to encourage you to leave the world a better place than what you found it. So that's what
Yeah.
leads me to somebody who's very spiritual and really devoted their life to bringing people together, really looking for the common denominator that binds all of us.
Well, pretty much that's what we're trying to do here today.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're getting ready to start booking shows I can't believe it. The next year is coming so soon. And I want to definitely invite you back. And before you come back, I intend to read your entire book from front to back.
Wow. Well, did I send you the PDF? I can't remember.
No, I didn't get it yet. But then I want you to read my book.
Okay.
And we will have a conversation about senior successful women who write books.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, well, there's a lot of it. Because I notice a lot of boomers who, particularly help vibration, people that have been mentors or psychologists or psychiatrists or nurses, all kinds of healers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my book, I have a lot of magic moments. And I think you not only will have magic moments, you have incredible memorable moments. And what a wonderful thing that you put it down. My book took probably 30 years to write. So
I know, because things come to you too. You tell your friends about your book, right? And then they said, but Tania, you forgot to, and my friend with the FAA said this to me. She said, Tania, you forgot to mention the da-da-da about buzzing the village before we landed. And I had, and what a thing, because we get, you know, and all the Nigerians are like, what is going on with this giant bird?
yeah, I know it kind of takes on a life of its own. Thank you, Tania Anderson, and we definitely will have you back in the new year, 2025.
I'd love that. Thank you. And I want to wish you a happy early Thanksgiving.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm going to be glittering all over the place.
There you go.
Now, remember, my dear listeners, hope you have enjoyed our wonderful time together. We've tried to be informative and inspiring. Next Thursday, live at 3 p.m. So now, thank you for entering the No Wine Zone and share our stories and our podcasts with everyone you know. Remember, stop whining, start smiling. And if that doesn't work, then you can just start eating chocolate. Lots and lots of chocolate. Be sure to glitter and glow until we meet again. Bye-bye.
We want to thank you for listening to January Jones Sharing Success Stories. Always remember Ms. Jones' personal mantra, if you can think it, you can do it. That's what all of our guests have done with their lives, and so can you. You are the ultimate success coach in your own life. All you need to do will be to start sharing your own story with your family and friends. We hope that our guest stories will encourage you to explore an equation in your future that will combine your creativity plus connecting with others will enable you to be successful too. Always remember, your passion plus your purpose will equal prosperity as you explore the wonderful world of January Jones.